Hey, everybody. Welcome to Craig and Joe's first podcast about the business of being an author. I'm here with Craig Martelle. I'm Joe Solari. And just as an introduction, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about what's involved in running your business as an author and how you can get started and scale up a independent publishing line. Both of us have published books, and both of us in the past have been involved in multiple businesses as consultants. So we're bringing a lot of that information that we had in a whole spectrum of different industries to independent publishing. So we're glad to have you here.
No, this is what it's about. A lot of people say they want to write a book, and then when they finally do, and they let that artistic talent flow, they get to the end line, and it's not an end line, it's actually the start line. Because once you wrote that book, what do you do now? And that's the business side of it that a lot of folks don't understand going in. It's not overwhelming, it's not a mountain too high. It's all stuff that anybody can do. Your average Joe can do it. It just if you're an artist, it doesn't mean you can't be successful in business, or that you need a benefactor like Leonardo da Vinci had the Medici family. We don't need that. This is the 21st century. We can reach out and touch billions of people ourselves, and you have to manage that part of the business. Don't let it be overwhelming. And that's what Joe and I want to talk to you about. That here's the little things that can help you set up your business in a way that helps you spend more time being creative and writing more books.
I think we're really in a golden age of content creation, and the rules are changing. So that part's we're all kind of learning as we go along with independent publishing or independent filmmaking and how we can distribute content today. But a lot of the business issues aren't new, right? Like my experience in working with small businesses across the spectrum, you go into it because you love something, say writing in this case, and you are successful, and you find out that, now I got all this other stuff I have to do because of my success. And if you make the choice either to ignore it or to do it poorly, there's going to be consequences, whether it's taxes or other types of reporting. I mean, all that stuff can come back and bite you at some point. Maybe it's only in the case that it's like now it's the end of the tax year and you have all this stuff you have to do that could have been done easier in bits along the way. But I think that, when you and I were initially talking about that, I think that's one of the big benefits that you and I can bring to people who watch this, is that we have these things to draw from other areas where they're making the exact same kind of decisions and getting the same crappy results that we can help some of the folks that are writing that, weren't necessarily thinking they were going to have a business and now do.
Yeah, a lot of people go into it, write a book, and expect a publisher to pick it up, and then you can just write more books and you can watch the money flow in. The good news is you can watch the money flow in, and you're going to get more of it by doing it yourself, because your indie royalties, Amazon will pay you 70%, Pronoun will pay you 70% royalties, and there's not a single traditional publisher out there that pays that level of royalty.
True. And, I'm working with an author right now who he at one point he had an advance of $250,000 on a book. So he was a pretty serious guy, and he stopped writing. He got back into it in retirement about 20 years later, and he's going independent this time. And one of the reasons why he chose to go independent is when he went back to his Rolodex and started calling up publishers, they weren't around anymore. So a lot of his, that's the other part of this game is that it's a lot harder to find a traditional publisher because they're really suffering. Their business is getting slammed. So not only are there less of them, but the quality of the people that are there tend to be a little bit different than it used to be in the past. So
I think that's a great point, Joe, in that traditional publishing is not. They are keeping up with the 1980s in regards to supplying brick and mortar stores. Mm-hmm. But as far as the digital content world, which look what I got in the mail yesterday. Yes, a Kindle Paperwhite because my Kindle Fire, the color screen, just a little hard on my eyes. I spend probably 12 hours in front of the computer as it is, and I like to touch a real book, and the Kindle Paperwhite can support my massive library. I transferred 600 books over yesterday.
Wow.
And it can support that library while still giving me that paper feel. So the new generation, and I did a book signing at Barnes & Noble. Just because of being independent doesn't mean you can't have books in the brick and mortar stores, just a few more hurdles to go through yourself. The big five, they will always dominate the hardbacks in the airports and stuff like that. Well, always for the foreseeable future, which in the 21st century is the next 2 or 3 years. In the interim, independent authors are going to be writing great books, are going to be more and more competitive. And I think you're going to see the big five come talk to us, as opposed to us sending letters to publishers saying, hey, could you look at my book? I think we're going to see the publishers looking at those top 100 lists and saying, hey, let's send a letter to that guy and see if he'd be interested in sharing his money with us or sharing her money with us, which is what it is right now. I can do everything myself, and I can manage my business. I can pay my taxes. I can do all of it with minimal effort, and I get to spend the majority of my time in content creation. And because I am the production line of my business, I am the the creative genius. We'll use that term loosely, but so creative genius and production, I take care of all of it as an author, and I like the end result.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I had lunch last week with Matt Sampson, who's going to be at the conference. He's an IP lawyer here in Chicago, a friend of mine.
20booksvegas.com. That's the conference in Samstown, 3 to 5 November.
Yeah, and we're going to have a real live IP attorney there that's really knows his stuff. And what we were one of the things we were talking about over lunch was, we called it not getting Stan Lee. If you're familiar with Stan Lee, the guy who created all of the Marvel characters, and he did it in a period of about 10 years. In those days, those guys got paid by how many pages they wrote in a day. They had no connection to the content at all. It was owned by whoever had it. And if you kind of follow the history of Marvel, it went through bankruptcies. And, the windup is that, he's done all right, but it wasn't from owning that content, which Disney paid over $4 million for. And that's where it gets to this whole concept of content, being this golden age of content creation, because like you say, you are the generator of that content, and the better you are at managing it, and whether it's the rights or the profits that come from it, it's not just about making a bunch of money, but it's about your creative vision gets to be put out there the way you wanted it to be, right? And I think it's not something we're going to talk about today, but it's important enough, for at this conference, we're going to have a guy come out and talk specifically on that topic.
And he's not just
we can get him on one of these calls.
Oh, you bet. And he's not just an IP lawyer. He works in an IP firm.
Yeah, that's all
they do. That's what they do. And so it's a great opportunity for networking and asking specific questions and seeing what the answer might be, and maybe even hiring on to pick him up as your lawyer when it comes to that stuff. You see all the TV shows, hey, I'm going to make you talk to my lawyer. Really? How many people have a lawyer? So it never hurts to actually have one.
Well, and on that point, one of the questions we had from the group was, if I have somebody that comes to me for a deal, who should I have an agent? Should I have an attorney? Who should negotiate for me? And rather than him say it being a lawyer, I'll say it being somebody who's paid a lot of money in legal fees over the years, is I wouldn't have an agent in this day and age. I would have somebody like Matt or another IP attorney that would be there because in the end, once an agent's done and struck a deal, it still has to get papered. Right. And now you're going to pay for the lawyer to do that. And, even if you're in a law firm, first off, I know Matt, so like he's quite qualified to, sit across the table and negotiate from people. But I mean, it's one of these deals where if you were all of a sudden approached by 20th Century Fox with a firm like that, they can bring in their team, right? You can be just as imposing as those guys are, and know that they're going to be taking care of you.
And that's good. And as you get, Stan Lee didn't do any of those negotiations because he had already sold all of his content right up front, because they paid him per page and they owned everything there. They owned the copyright, the IP, the intellectual property. So in this day and age, this is me. It's my name on the copyright. It's my name on the book. So if 20th Century Fox did want to make any of my books into movies, I would seriously consider hiring Matt and that group to protect me, because I now have a granddaughter. So 50 years down the road, are they going to make a movie of it? And then who would benefit? I would want my heirs to benefit. I wouldn't want somebody else who's going to throw me $1,000 or $10,000 now to benefit off that later. It's my risk. It's my stuff. So talking about that, let's get into the business side of an independent author. What from this our first podcast? Yeah, we've talked about some various things. I think what we want to do is, and Joe set this up, just talk about an overview, a framework. Here's the kind of stuff that we want to bring up and talk about. And then for future iterations of the podcast, we'll go into more and more detail, provide some references and things like that. But for now, let's talk about the overview. You're a new author. You just wrote a book. You sent it to an editor that you were lucky enough to find. What do you do now?
For a lot of folks, because you see people at different stages of being an author, and they may be setting up a company and doing all kinds of stuff like that. And what I would suggest is that you look at, first and foremost, understanding that you want to always run a profitable business. So there may be some things that you're not necessarily ready to do now, like set up a company, because that's going to cost you, say, $300-400 to register the company and go through that. But you do need to really get the asset protected. The tax stuff is kind of a different issue. So you really need to look at what you can do from a copyright perspective, and focusing on, getting your ISBN numbers, and because if you look at the fine print of Amazon, when you get that ISBN number, it's not clean. I mean, they're not going to come after your rights, but they do exert some rights in what can be on their platform because of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's still they're very open into what you can publish, but they're not very open into as far as what they will help you promote. If you write erotica, for example, you will not show up in their search results, and they're going to kind of bury you. You can sell it because it sells well, because porn sells well, and that's a horrible thing, but it does. So erotica is available on Amazon, but you have to know where to find it. You can't search for it. But your general books, your young adult, your science fiction, your thrillers, all of that stuff is available, and you can get it there and publish it. And one of the things we talked about was risk tolerance. What is your willingness to tolerate risk? Are you writing a book on how evil the U.S. government or a corporation is? That might create a little more risk than a science fiction novel about Buck Rogers going to space. So you have to look at and understand where your risk is. You're writing a romance novel without any public characters. Hey, that's a low risk for you personally. So you can publish that without having to go these other ways, as in filing with the U.S. Copyright Office, paying your $30 fee so it's copyrighted. But the way the law reads is it's a prima facie evidence of copyright, and you can do it up to 5 years post facto. So you can file that copyright later if you're successful. So how do you manage those initial costs? Is you can put that book up on Amazon. You can do the cover yourself. You can do the editing yourself. Publishing, it gives you the opportunity to do it at very, very low cost. Now, if you want to professionalize it, that comes at costs. And this is what Joe was talking about earlier. You have to manage your cost. It's a business. So if you want to put the best face on it, you need maybe a professional cover, unless you're a graphic artist and understand that stuff. So you get your cover, you get your professional editing. It's a professional looking book. You can dump it on Amazon without having a business, because it's still your copyright. The second you wrote it, you copyrighted it. So understand that you're okay.
And that's an important part. You can just go and publish, and you know, if you look at the majority of books that are out there on Amazon independently published, you know, 90% of them are probably just that. They're just up there with Amazon's numbers and no formal copywriting. But if you are interested in doing that, it's something you don't have to hire a lawyer to do. You can do it online, and fill that out and send them their, like you said, $35, and it's done. And you can do it at any time, and then it's out there. And I think it's important to, like what you said, is to think about this. Where should that first money be best spent, right? One thing I tried doing that survey in the group to get data, and I got about 10 of them back, and they were all over the place. One of the conclusions I drew out of what I looked at was, there were some very successful authors that were doing it at a very low cost. They were making their own covers. They were using an advanced reader group to really do the bulk of their editing. So their cost per book was pretty low. Now, what I did notice about a lot of them is they're prolific, so they're knocking out a lot of books per year. So those, although maybe the costs were, $200 a book, there was, 10, 20 books a year. So it's no matter what, it was adding up.
Yeah.
When I've done books, I've always hired somebody to do the covers. I find there's some pretty economical folks out there that they just, they're better at running Photoshop, right? I mean, I could do it, but if I figure out what my cost per hour is, it's probably a $3,000 cover. How do you do your covers?
I pay good money because brand. I'm prolific, to use that term. I will pass 2 million words written in the next week, and probably about 1.8 million in publication right now. So I'm okay. I have a lot of covers. I publish 10 to 20 books a year. I'm in that group. And I probably pay $1,000, $1,200 per novel for the cover, for the editing, for some other basic stuff. My marketing cost is down. So when I slow down on the books, then I'm going to ratchet up my marketing costs. But you're going to have to be a professional. You really need to. It comes at a cost, and there's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. How do you manage it? Well, those 10 to 20 books, I make an awful lot of money. My ROI is probably up around 20 to 1. Mm. So I do okay.
Well, that's a really good point. Is like when you're thinking about putting out a book, and you mentioned this when we were kind of getting ready for the calls. The whole concept of what was it? Preparing, expect the worst, but plan for the best.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good strategy to follow, and that, make sure that book on its own is going to, when you sell whatever number it is, if it's 100, 1,000, 10,000, whatever you feel that's, appropriate for you, that you're going to break even. Right. You know that before that book is up on Amazon, and in that we've kind of talked about the prep work, the covers, editing, but then the next thing is marketing, what you're intending to spend on marketing. I mean, you can sell a lot of copies of books and never make a dime because you spend so much in marketing.
Yep. And that's ROI, return on investment. Mm-hmm. The 1,000 to 1,200. So I'll sell 2,000 to 3,000 copies the first day. However, we price it down to 99 cents at the outset, which is only 35% royalty. So those 2,000 or 3,000 copies, we're really looking to break even within the first 1 to 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
After 24 hours, raise the price to the regular price. Amazon will keep pushing it via their algorithms. Our marketing campaign hits about the second day. The first day is all for rewarding the people who follow us, whether it's in the newsletter, on Facebook, other social media, follow my blog. All of that stuff is there. So we reward those folks. We take a little bit of a financial hit, and it's not a financial hit at all. It's we have really, really good followers, readers. We get a lot of reviews, and that also helps perpetuate the marketing. So my marketing costs, I looked last month and I thought I had ratcheted up my marketing, but I kind of left some things off. I didn't throw the money into Facebook that I wanted to, so I spent like $150 is all on marketing last month. It's almost embarrassing. But I published 2 books in the month, and they did really, really well. So,
well, that's it too. When you get to a certain point where you have that critical mass, then you get a bigger return on investment of that prior spend on.
Yes.
A lot of people don't think about that when they're doing a marketing program, that it takes time for that to scale up, and that you have to get that first click and that first free read or whatever it might be that is your introduction. You don't really know what the behavior is on that, right? It could take that particular marketing program to take 6-9 months to get to where that person is now in the world that we're talking about here as a fan, right? And require them to read 2 or 3 of your books on Kindle Unlimited or whatever it is. And that stuff you can't see, but if you don't have that pipeline going, it's never going to build that critical mass.
And that's a very good point. Your first book, you've written it, you've sent it to your editor. You absolutely need to have back matter. After you've written the end on that first book, back matter is where you link to a newsletter list. MailChimp will let you have the first 1,000 for free. So you can get in there and get a free program.
2,000 now.
Oh, is it? That's way cool.
They kicked it up. Yeah.
Well, but they also ratcheted up the pay. It goes up $5 for every 100 new subscribers. So damn. But so 2,000, you have that link in the back. Say, hey, here's a free 2,000 word short story, bio, whatever. If you sign up for my newsletter list, you can do some automation. There's all kinds of available free resources to help you set up that newsletter list. Because if you publish a book every 3 to 4 weeks, you don't lose your people. But if you're publishing a book every 6 months to a year, the readers will forget you exist, even if they loved your book. Give them an opportunity to stay in touch with you. And this way, the newsletter or the link or some way, that's critical for your back matter. You put that in, and you put that link, you put in, hey, if you'd like to put an Amazon review link. So I'll publish the book, and then as soon as it's live, I'll copy the Amazon review link in right after the end, and then re-upload the file. Because I want to give the readers a chance to, in case their Kindle reader, whatever they're reading it on, doesn't send them immediately to that, hey, leave an Amazon review or leave a Goodreads review. So I give them multiple opportunities to drop a word or two.
Yeah, and well, the point there that you made me think about is that you can, with digital publishing, you can change that back matter over and over again. So as your portfolio of books increases, you can put those in, right? So if your plan is to write a series and you don't have the other books written yet, it's work, right? You got to go back to book 1 and do all the stuff, but all that stuff, it takes you an hour or 2 to do that. It pays off in the long run because you make it easier for your fans to find that next book.
Make it easy on the reader, and that goes to business 101. Make it easy for people to spend money on you. You don't want to just find readers. You want to find readers who are willing to pay for what you write. That's the mindset that the artist needs to have.
Well, that's such an important point, is because I think we get dazzled by Amazon. Amazon is the conduit, right? Yeah. They're the they're the cable company that connects your content to the user. It's the beauty of what is going on today in this golden age is that you have the capacity through Facebook and mailing lists and all this other stuff to connect to your fan base.
Yeah.
And that's really your most valuable asset. It's, along with the content. If there's not fans that aren't going to read it, then it has no value. So making sure that you treat them well and they feel that they're getting good value for their money.
That's the 99-cent release. There's 6,000 fans that I don't have to go look for each time I publish. And that is worth its weight in gold. So, because imagine if you started from scratch each time. And Dave Chesson actually did this. He publishes the program Kindle Rocket, KDP Rocket.
Great product.
Oh, I believe so. I use it all the time. But Dave Chesson, one thing he did was he wanted to demonstrate that he could work the keywords, the blurb, and the style, and publish a new book with a new pen name, starting all from scratch, and still be successful. Because his whole thing is you can use the keywords to your advantage. I don't have to do that, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to look for 6,000 new readers each time I publish a book. So it makes it so easy, and that's how you can drop your spend down to $150 in a month and still make an awful lot of money. The top 10% of the top 1% is a nice place to be financially.
Well, and the value of that fan base. I mean, what I think about when you talk about something like that is the Fast and Furious movies. I've never seen any of them. I have no desire to see them, but it's a franchise, right? Whether they're on 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever it is now. Why is that? It's because they know they put that movie out, and if it fits the formula, that they're going to get this existing fan base to go to the movie, buy the video game, do all that, right? Go to
the lunchbox, our era.
So that kind of stuff, when you see big companies doing that, it's like, why is that? It's because they've established a way to really get that return on investment, right? They don't have to go out and find the fan base or hope that the fan base shows up with a new movie. That's why there's sequels and all these things.
Well, because
that's why series work well.
It matches up with, hey, where's your break-even point? If you have those people, your break-even point, it narrows, so you can you guarantee we're going to make a profit on this movie. Now, how much? Well, that's up for debate, and that goes to some additional marketing, but you save on your marketing budget because you can either make a lot of money and spend a lot of money, or you can ratchet that down, control your costs, make less money, but have more take-home pay. I mean, that's business 101, and a lot of people who write a book, they have never had to manage a business before. They don't, the cash flow, how does that work? Amazon pays you 2 months from now. So if you pay $1,000 for your book this month, you need to have that $1,000 in the bank, because it's not going to, even if you get 100% return on your investment, you make $1,000, you're not going to see that money for 2 months. This is all the business part, but don't let that overwhelm you. Just understand there's a cost. You can go into Amazon having spent nothing, and then when you start seeing those paychecks, you start rolling that money back into your business. It's not, hey, I got my first $1,000 paycheck, let's go to Tahiti. Well, you also got to set aside a little bit for taxes too, just in case.
Yeah, and I think that we'll leave it to the viewers what their next topics are that they're interested in, but I'd be happy to talk. I think that's a really important topic to talk about is cash flow and thinking about your business. What profitability means and what cash flow means are very different, right? And there's a lot of businesses. Amazon's a great example, right? They've not been profitable very often. They've got huge cash flows, and they're in a different world because they have access to financing that can allow them to do that. But as an independent author, if your cash flows aren't right, you're tapped out, right? It's like you may not be able to make your mortgage. So you have to really understand that stuff. It's not hard to do. It might seem scary at first, but even if you're not somebody that uses Excel, we can, provide some resources in Excel, but you can do this on a legal pad.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Right. So
it's if you can balance your checkbook, you can manage your author business.
Well, a lot of people don't balance their checkbooks.
Oh my God.
I know that.
I balance
it's
it.
Tough for a lawyer and a Marine to hear, but
Oh my God. I balance it to the penny.
Yeah. So maybe the other thing we should talk about, we've been kind of bouncing around here, is coming off the marketing thing is web presence. That's another thing that, has been very helpful for authors and can have some costs associated with it. And it's something that, my feeling is that it's probably, kind of table stakes to get into the game to have a web presence. What's your thoughts on that?
One of the best things you can do is establish your author page, which means you need a domain name, you need some web space, because some advertisements don't go unless you actually have a landing page. Like, I own CraigMartelle.com. Okay, it wasn't hard to buy. Nobody cares about CraigMartelle.com. So it was easy, and it was bargain basement through GoDaddy. Set it up, and I have my books listed there now. And now I'm making enough money that I actually need to pay somebody to fleet it over and make it look sexy, because it looks like I did it, which is pretty cool, mind you. But it's not exactly best for marketing. So that's there. And that cost me, I went with webs.com, and it only cost me $100, $200 per year to keep that available. It just gives me a lot of options. Craig at CraigMartelle.com for an email gives me an awful lot of options anywhere I go, because it's easy. It shows that I have a web presence, and it's a funnel for people who find me to join my newsletter then, without having gone through the back matter or clicked on that review link or my newsletter link. I think that web presence is so critical. You can blog, which you have push and you have pull style for your readers. The push style is you send them a newsletter. The pull is I publish blog posts and they come to me. Pull is harder to get people to do until you're so famous. A lot of people go to Pottermore.com because J.K. Rowling publishes there. So that's a pull system that works, but her popularity has earned her that. Us, not so much. We're trying to push content out, and that you need a web presence to do that. You can try to do it on Facebook, but a Facebook as a landing page is not optimal.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that marketplace is so competitive. There's GoDaddy, there's Wix, there's Squarespace, there's Bluehost. So there's so many options for you to get that landing page set up, and most importantly, that domain name with your email address. Because if you try and do something like MailChimp and you're using your AOL or your Gmail address, it's because unfortunately, because there's so many spam things out there and scammers and stuff, those email addresses are targeted as spam, and they don't succeed. A lot of mail you'll send out will, just because the return email address is SBC GlobalNet, boom, goes right into their spam box, and you're wondering why you're not getting the response rate. It's because of stuff like that. Whereas, if you have it off your pen name or your name or whatever your book series is, that it's unique. And so I think that's good. And the other thing that's nice about a lot of those is if you go with something like Squarespace or that, I believe they usually include your domain as kind of a get you in the door thing, and it's a monthly fee. So your cash flows are instead of dropping $300 today, it might be $15-$30 a month, which can help a lot of people. So, again, it's not something that's prohibitive if you're getting started.
Yeah, that's right. Because we want to talk to all audience. I mean, I had a a nice nest egg in order to start my business. And I didn't hit the black for, it was my 11th month publishing before I went into the black.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, so when I first got into the independent publishing, it was actually my wife wrote a book almost 5 years ago. And, in those days you just put a book up, you didn't get in all this marketing stuff. And, it took off. It was really good. So we were fortunate, but now in that, when we launched her second book in that same category, like the game has changed, right? There's more people publishing, there's people that are marketing, right? So we couldn't play it that way. So while there was like zero marketing on the first book, the second book, we really had to make sure that we had our website clean, and there was places for her fans to find that new book. And it's really important because, I mean, it because you're a series writer, but when she launched her second book, guess what? It didn't sell nearly as many copies as the first book, right? Like, it reinvigorated that whole first book because people were like, well, I want to read the first book first and then I'll read the second book.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think that's the other thing. If you got a website, you've got a better place to manage that story about how your content's going to be provided. Yeah. So Craig, you're kind of coming to an end here. We don't want to make people's eyes bleed watching us here.
That's right.
So,
and you need a backdrop, dude. You need something behind you. I've got look at this. Oh my God, those blueprint drawings. We got some Alaska there. Look at that. Oh my God.
Well, dude, I can put in whatever I want now. This is almost like a green screen, right?
That's right. That's right. Get creative.
Yeah, I'll make it look like I'm in Tahiti.
Yeah.
Open this up for just questions. And I know we have an agenda as far as we're going to be talking about taxes and deductions and probably dive into the topics we've already talked about deeper. But really what we want is for folks to leave us some comments and questions that we can address specifically.
Yeah. And talk about it. My background, I'm retired from the Marine Corps, but then I went and got a law degree and worked as a business diagnostics specialist and a business consultant for 7 years. I retired from that in order to write full time. I do live in Alaska, a no state tax state. So for now anyway. And my dad is an enrolled agent in the IRS. So he is the tax guy. If I have any questions, I just go ask Dad. It makes it real easy. We bring a lot of experience to the table. I am all about content creation and writing good books now, but still I need to manage my business. So this isn't a journey just where we're lecturing. This is a journey where we're learning too. You ask good questions. Hey, we're going to research. We're going to find out what's the best answer, what's going to benefit us. Should you pay yourself a salary using an S Corp? Would you use your 401k to fund your business? What things can you do to give you a business edge and not be so scary that you're going to get yourself in hot water or make your business untenable? If you have to take a second job to finance your writing, you're going to lose the time to write. You're going to lose the motivation. You don't want to do that. You want the writing to be your successful second job, to take the pressure off your first job. And that is what we're all about here. We want to help you get where you can be a full-time writer. I mean, if that is your goal, then there's some business stuff you need to do. There's some business stuff you don't need to do right now. You don't need to form a C Corp or an LLC and haven't published a book yet. You have no risk. Until you establish that risk, you can look at it and say, yes, I'm good until I have the third book in the series. And then maybe I will establish that business, get that cash flow going, maybe even hire an accountant because I'm making enough money. And let's move forward and let's make even more money. It's not a linear progression. It's not, hey, I made $50 on my first book and 20 books later, I'm going to make 20 times 50. No, it goes up and it arcs. Once you find those readers, because you take a fan who is a super fan they will help market your book because they're going to sell it to everybody they talk to. Say, hey man, have you read Joe Solari? Oh my God, you need to. This is the best book ever. So they are worth their weight in gold. You manage your super fans, and you're going to see that an arc and not a line. Hey, I'm making $1,000 a month. No, you make $1,000 this month, and then 5,000 the next month, and then maybe 20,000. But then you don't publish for a couple months, and you're back down to 3,000. How do you manage that so you can still keep writing and not flail saying, oh my God, I never paid my taxes and now I owe the IRS. I made a lot of money last year. Yay, I owe the IRS 30 grand and I don't have it. Boo.
Maybe what we'll do is for my backdrop, everybody that like contacts us like April 1st through the 15th about what should I do about my taxes, we'll put their wall up here. I'll be the wall of shame.
We're going to have a banner of, oh crap.
Yeah. I think it's real important for us to make it clear. We're not here selling anything. We're exploring stuff, you and I together. A lot of the stuff we're learning on the fly. When I was talking to Matt, and he's been an IP attorney for 25 years, he's like, this space is the Wild West, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can pull in from, as a lawyer, this, it always goes back to precedent, right? So you look to the past to do things for the future. But we are in a space where a lot of this we're figuring out, and what's working today might not work in the future.
Yeah.
So using this to be a forum for the group to ask us questions, teach us stuff. We'd be happy if you guys have something that's really cool, get you on one of these calls and talk about it. But I've got a lot of resources to draw on from my past experience. Prior to going out on my own, my previous business, we raised $21 million in private and public money doing a startup. There's stuff from that's actually applicable to what we're doing here, because in both cases, whether you like it or not, you're going to have a business. If you're successful, and we all want to be successful writers, right? We want to write a book to be able to continue to write. If that's really what your creativity is all about, you're going to have to deal with the money.
Yeah.
Right? I always like the quote from Godfather 2, Hyman Roth, this is the business we've chosen, right? It's like, you got to deal with what this business brings to you. You can't stick your hand in the sand and stick your head in the sand and forget about it. This is the business you're in.
Yeah.
It is a business.
So how can we make it less scary?
Yeah. I mean, there's, again, this goes across every small business owner. And I mean, this country, 98% of the businesses are less than $1 million in revenue.
That's right.
And it's millions and millions of businesses. And whether the guy's laying tile, writing a book, or selling insurance, he's facing the same kind of stuff: paying taxes, marketing, taking care of his customers, making sure his books balance, and what I found is across that, taking that stuff that you don't like to do and systematizing it so that while you have to do it because you may not be able to afford an accountant or afford some of these other people, make it as painless as it can possibly be. I'm not saying it'll be pain-free, but at least okay, I'm doing this every Friday because if I don't, it's going to be 3 months of trying to get my taxes together.
Yeah.
Great. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I'm good for now. I hope we get some good questions. If not, we'll press with our next topic, which I'm not sure what it'll be. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about federal taxes, what you can deduct as an author. Now,
that sounds good.
And the first order of business there is you can't spend all this money as an author and deduct it off your main revenue. You have to deduct it from your author revenue. You can't spend $10,000 on a grand vacation. You made $500 from your publishing and expect to deduct all $10,000. You'll be able to deduct $500. That's it. So you need to make money as an author in order to deduct the money. I deduct every bit of travel I do nowadays because I can always write something. I can always get an inspiration. I can always put together an outline from a location. And so everything, my hotel room, my airlines, and it's all legal. I'm not cutting corners or exploring gray areas in the taxes. It's all completely legal. Writers have a big opening in what they can do. But how can you do that? If we don't get any questions, we can talk about that next time. If that's what you want to talk about, give us specifics, but we don't want to do state specifics. Joe's in Illinois, I'm in Alaska, and there's 50 different state rules on taxes. We'll try to stick just to federal because that's more universal for Americans anyway.
That sounds great. Well, it's good again talking to you, and I hope this was a benefit to all the folks out there that watch this.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having us. Let's putting this together, and I'm really glad that I didn't drop out. Zoom has worked magnificently. You didn't even freeze up any. Worked magnificently.
And I guess we just have, getting up this early does it for us, right? We've been able to see this. Actually, in the back window, the light has been coming up.
Oh, geez, yeah. It's we start at 5 a.m. my time here in Alaska. So I'm Craig Martelle. You're Joe Solari. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.